Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another session of Beyond Connections, MyTrade's bi-weekly live, where you're able to ask us analysts of MyTrade PH your burning questions about the stock market. I'm Bess, one of the analysts for Abaco Securities or MyTrade, and today I'm joined by.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Herman, one of the analysts also.
Hi, I'm Ray here, also one of the analysts who covers mostly consumer stocks.
I'm Isaiah, one of the technical analysts for MyTrade.
Okay, keep your comments and questions coming. Hello, good afternoon, LB De La Cruz, another long-time viewer. Thank you for your comments. I think my question siya from LA, Pampanga. Happy Bouncy Thursday. What are your thoughts po with BPI, Metrobank, GT Cap, Ali, SCC, and ICT? I think this is your whole portfolio, is it? So let me start with, sige, maybe while IC prepares whatever charts he wants to discuss, I'll start with BPI and Metrobank. So two of the biggest banks in the country. Lately, we have seen some reports from the BSP or comments from the BSP governor that rate cuts may be delayed to later this year or possibly even first quarter of 2025 if inflation keeps going up. But their base case is for the fourth quarter of this year. So that means that that interest rates may stay where they are, which is higher for longer than we initially expected. This is quite positive for the whole banking sector. Also, the latest loan industry loan growth numbers as of February showed that loan growth is saw an uptick. So it's probable that the bottom was already achieved last quarter for, so we may see some recovery in loan growth going forward. So that's one of the reasons, or two of the main reasons that these two stocks, BPI and Metrobank, has uh, been resilient over the past few days or weeks. And then I'll go with ICT muna. There was some news a few days ago that there was a protest on the bid of the joint venture of ICT with Transnet for the Port of Durban, which is the upcoming which is the acquisition that we are quite excited about for ICT, since it's one of the largest ports in the region in South Africa. And when this is consolidated, it will have a big impact on the portfolio of ICT. So that protest could cause some delay uh, uh, delay for the closing of the deal. However, we do expect this to still push through. Um, we are just waiting for the conclusion of the elections in that country, probably by the end of May. So that could be one of the factors for the movements in ICT's price, but also it uh, ICT is also taking over a small port in Iloilo, which will add to their domestic portfolio as well. It's quite small, only 100,000 TEUs, but there is potential for growth there, since this could drive, if they could turn all that domestic volume into foreign volume for imports and export or shipments coming into and out of the Philippines. So there would be another parang gateway into the Visayas region. So. And then for GT Cap, recently there was some news of a recall on some of their models. It There was about 3,000 units of Land Cruiser, and then a few other units for Lexus models sold between 2021 and early this year, 2024. This may have negatively affected sentiment, but this is only comprising on a small percentage of their total sales, less than 1%. But there are other factors as well that may have uh, resulted in negative sentiment for GDCAP, including the depreciation of the peso or the strength of the dollar in recent days, and also the potential for higher oil prices to negatively impact the demand for cars, since the worsening of the political situation in Middle East could impact oil prices. So, Herman, can you comment on Ali and SCC?
Okay, for Ali, so best I discussed the banks to be the beneficiaries of higher for longer dates. At the other end of the spectrum, we have the property sector and specifically see Ali. So for Ali, um, it is one of the main gainers or top gainers in the property sector when talks of rate cuts was at its peak. However, because of recent hawkish sentiments from the BSP, uh, it led to a weakening in the price of Ali. And also, management said that their goal of doubling their profits in 5 years will be put at risk if interest rates remain elevated, as their middle income brands and below would remain challenged. So, on the positive side, among those companies that have active buyback programs, I think Ali's buyback program will be the most impactful because its remaining budget composes around 8% of its public float. So that should provide some support to its share price, and also its relative strength index is now below 30. So it's now at oversold territory. However, as long as the BSP remains hawkish in their statements, Ali might still see some challenges in terms of its share price. So probably wait at lower levels before accumulating. And then for SEC, the stock is benefiting from an uptrend in the past 5 days from Newcastle prices. And then for dividends from this year's earnings, I think it's still enough to provide a double-digit yield, albeit at a lower level compared to last year. So still double-digit yield for SEC at current prices. So um, those looking for a yield play might want to pick up the stock below 30 pesos.
Okay, well, I see prepares the charts. I saw a funny comment from LB. Thank you, though, for reviewing his or her portfolio by weekly. Which one do you want to discuss first?
We can start with Ayala Land, since Herman just mentioned it kanina.
Maybe we can show the chart.
Say that. So starting off with Ayala Land, as Herman said, well, on the technical front, it's on the more oversold levels here, both touching near the lower end of the long-term Bollinger Bands and the RSI levels. So, but it could still fall to the chart support at 2615. The other stock was it ICT?
Yeah. Marami siya.
Marami. It's a portfolio. Other stock was ICT was spared from the sell-off. The RSI levels are similar to this lower level at near Fed. This might be appealing to more of the momentum trader types who will probably buy on the new high of this upper boundary. For those who want to possibly buy lower, you might look to buy close to the 50-day moving average. And if it breaks the 50-day, you may want to lighten your position. Is there another stock? And Metro Bank, right?
Maybe last
Yeah.
one, so we can move on. Maybe next one.
Jitika.
GTCA. Okay, GTCA. GTCA is now also, after spending quite a bit of time above the 50-day moving average, which is the orange line here, it briefly pierced to the 200-day moving average. So I'm sure the RSI would say that.
Maybe hide mo na yung comment.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
So your RSI is also below 30. And trading at the 200 days, so it looks like it's already an oversold level. So which can be purchased. So yeah.
Okay, so next from let's see the question from Ken. Thank you always now from Tokyo. And his question is on SPNEC. According to yesterday's financial reports, SPNEC 500 megawatt project is only 57% completed. Started construction at the end of 2021. When on earth will SPNEC turn profitable? In Terabang.
I think part of the delay is outside the hands of the company because NGCP or the transmission grid also has a lot of delayed projects in the entire grid. So there are still some projects that are waiting to be connected to the grid and waiting um, to supply the grid with their output. So part of the delay is outside the hands of the company. In terms of turning profitable, well, Espinec is still a startup, so we expect earnings to still remain choppy. You can compare this with the one with ASEN. As you can see, its earnings it's still also quite volatile. So because OPEX have been increasing while projects are still ramping up. So I think that's also comparable to Espinec. So I think we might need to wait for I think at least next year to for the company to see consistent profitability. And also, it will also depend on how long it will take before the company finds a potential partner for its flagship project, Terra Solar. So, so they're still contingent on that.
Okay, so maybe what technical perspective?
Technical perspective on SPN. Here we go. So SPNet has struggled below this trend line that began in April 2023. It's clearly broke the critical support level at 105. To change sentiment, it may need to trade back or reclaim the 105 level to hopefully change the sentiment in the stock price.
Okay, so while we wait for your questions, Rainer, maybe you can discuss any of the consumer companies that have recently reported their earnings.
I guess several companies that have reported their earnings. So we have the likes of SG, as we wrote earlier today in our short takes. So if you want to read more about it, you can sign up for a MyTrade account so you can get our short takes every day. And there we provide our thoughts on recent events, both for earnings and news around. So basically, I guess what I want to highlight in the earnings recently, I think a name we haven't heard in a while is Emperador. They have reported their earnings, but it's mostly weaker as compared to year on year, which is basically the previous year, especially in the fourth quarter. And it has been dragged down by its brandy segment, which is the domestic or basically the Philippines, and which is slightly offset naman by its whiskey segment, which has been growing. One of the pillars of growth for Emperador in the whiskey segment. However, I guess a lot of the focus is coming into the brandy segment since it is the one experiencing a slowdown, especially if compared to its smaller peers. So if you compare it to Keeper, which on the other hand provided or showed strong results, especially on the top line and on the bottom line for the fourth quarter. it has Emperador has underperformed, and right now I think it's trading at about 24 to 25 times PE, which is pretty expensive given the given the underperformance. I think even now, I mean, at its rate, it only performed 88% of full year consensus, so it really underperformed. So if you compare it to Keeper, which is only trading about less than 10 times PE, that's why we continue to prefer Keeper over Emperador. So I think we can move on to the next question. So again,
Still
from
Ken.
Ken. What are your thoughts about the impact of higher and longer interest rates environment on Plus? Well, currently, because I see currently Plus is on its expansion stage, high growth stage, and much of its, I guess, revenues and how do you say this? Much of their revenues isn't really dependent heavily on capex, so they don't really have to borrow much compared to other companies. They're not really you can call them asset light, so they don't really need to invest a lot if you compare it to the others, especially their e-gaming. So if you compare it to the physical and the online gaming, the infrastructure for the online games are much lower compared to the overhead cost of, let's say, a Solaire. So their interest expense is not that high compared to the others, not only for its gaming peers, but also to the other peers as well in the consumer space and gaming space. So the impact is likely unlikely to be uh, significant, especially on the bottom line or profitability for Plus. Actually, starting this month, even we are gonna see better profitability from Plus because of the lower backcore share that will be implemented starting this month for a lot of their games. Um, what else can we know? So I think yeah, more or less that's the impact. But I guess when you talk about its revenues, maybe its users are starting to feel the impact of higher and longer interest rates, which could affect their disposable incomes, which could lead to lower revenues for Plus. I don't think that's the case since for Plus again it is still at its growth stage, so it is still getting more users. They are seeing new users and returning customers, so that is still the main catalyst or main driver for growth for Plus. Oh, so okay. I think we have to move on since we are getting an influx of questions. So first from Julius Manalo, what is causing the drop in AC price?
So for Ayala Corp, we actually have not been so keen on that stock for some time now. It's one of the last conglomerates to have been able to recover from the pandemic. But lately, they've also been selling some of their or uh,
Divesting.
they've been divesting or selling some of their units that have not been profitable. This includes some units from under IMI. Also, they sold off, or they needed to cease operations for Entrego, which is their one of the logistics companies under AC, which has also been losing. And I think they also have their their stake in LRT1 and their remaining stake in Manila Water up for sale. So they are reorganizing their portfolio, so which is um, probably adding to the negative sentiment for EC. Um, they are going to reinvest the funds that they raise from those sales into new sectors that they are um, going into most visibly the hospital sector. They just recently opened their cancer the cancer hospital, and they are increasing their investments in pharmacies and also in education. So these are new sectors that they are going into, which would take some time before they would be profitable. So that's one of the that's been affecting the stock price lately. So maybe a chart technical analysis perspective on AC.
Is
Is only so after let's speak for the indicators to medyo bagong may minute na no?
Kailangan refresh.
So after it broke the support at about 656 pesos per share, um, the price accelerated downwards, so it's now near an oversold level. At best, you could expect this to maybe have a shallow bounce, probably closer to the 200-day moving average at best. So in the near term, but for the most part, the trend looks like it's down.
Okay, next question. From Regan Dobaton. Hi, MyTrade. Why do you think SEC removed the limit on minimum transaction fee? Doesn't it discourage even more investors in case brokers decide to increase their transaction fees? There, I think in the news reports, the reason for the removal of the minimum transaction fee is actually to encourage more investors into, specifically retail investors, since the minimum 20 peso commission would be removed. But we have to wait for the interpretation of the PSE on how this will be implemented in actuality. I think actually this would result in brokers actually decreasing the transaction fees in order to compete with each other. So hopefully this would indeed result in more liquidity or more turnover in the market. But we have to wait and see. Do you have any comments? I see, as a trader, what do you think of the
It's good for, I guess there won't be any more 8K rule, potentially
Yeah.
won't be an 8K rule. It used to be an 8K rule based on the minimum of the 20 pesos per transaction, so I guess you won't have that supposed 8K rule in trade forward. Tama.
yeah. So if you trade 1,000 pesos, your transaction fee will not be 20 pesos anymore, but now 1,000 times 0.25, 0.25%.
Okay, for I don't know how to pronounce his name, Wang Yang Yun. We discussed Espinet earlier actually, so once the live ends, you can go back and replay the live. It was one of the early questions, so they recently reported earnings, so that was the gist of the discussion. From Ariana Tatanko, pa-chart po na SGP and SSI.
It's not the SSI kanina.
Chart?
Oh, no, go back. Yeah.
Dito.
SGP.
That one.
SGP recently declared dividends after not declaring for some time, so that probably resulted in the stock price movement recently.
Right, so on the technicals are bullish. but it can't. Not sure if it can be sustained. But the price structure is of a bullish configuration. Looks like it's reversed. Can it sustain this? Do you think?
For SGP, I think this is a case of ano din, selling before X date because the outsized declared dividends is just a combination of the missed dividends last Q3 and Q4. So pinagsama lang siya. And so it's really a delayed declaration on the part of the company. And if you can see its quarterly dividend payout, it has been on a downtrend. So for the next quarters, we're still not very positive on the company being able to sustain its dividends, especially as it's receiving some pressure from the government to focus more on its delayed projects than paying out dividends. So I think those who are holding the stock should sell before X date.
Quickly on SSI. Strong move today, replaying the previous price levels at the 21-day EMA. Looks a little bit extended from now, so if you have it, it's a good hold, and you may want to consider using the 50-day moving average as a trailing stop.
Okay, then for I guess a short fundamental note on SSI, since we also discussed it in our short takes earlier this week. SSI did outperform expectations. It has been doing well. I guess they have turned around completely their business as compared to pre-pandemic levels. They basically times five their profits, and it's doing well in terms of both managing their inventory and as well as maintaining their growth trajectory. I think it's also a play on the premiumization as people are starting to increase or level up their um, purchases. So that's not only in the space for food but also in the clothing. And since we are on the topic of dividends, the SSI is also expected to declare dividends, I think, in the next 2 weeks. And it's likely to be higher compared to what we saw last year. So our expectation here is mga yield niya is about maybe 4 to 5%. So I think at current prices, I think that's also one of the expectations since it moved to another 52-week high. So well, again, it is one of the outperformers. Yeah. So,
Okay. Next, from Reagan Lobaton again. Thoughts on AEV and Globe update on Mint IPO. For AEV first, most the units that have been floundering in the past few quarters actually saw good recovery in the fourth quarter, mainly for their food unit. The farms division has been hit hard by the ASF last year. So there's been some recovery on that, and also on their flours and feeds. They've been hit by higher raw materials prices and have in the previous year as well, and have seen some better margins in the fourth quarter and hopefully in the first quarter as well. And then we are also looking forward to the impact of the Coke acquisition for AEV, which will be quite positive for the conglomerate. For Globe,
So for Globe update on Mint IPO. For the Mint IPO, it's the C Ernest School's latest utterance that they think the market is not yet ready for an IPO that big. So investors might not be able to absorb the the size of Mint's IPO. Management said that their priority is to list here in the Philippines, since most of the subscribers are situated here. However, we think it would be better for the company to list in the US or outside the Philippines in order to obtain a higher valuation and to garner more proceeds from the IPO. So aside from that, no other updates yet for Min's IPO.
And to add lang to AEV, its main earnings drivers are still AP and Union Bank, mostly AP. And I think lately Western prices have been high, so which is positive for AP, tama ba? And then for Union Bank, we are expecting that much better performance this year, especially starting second quarter, since the costs related to the Citibank acquisition should no longer be a factor in their OPEX. So both positive for AEV as well. So chart.
We can do AV. AEV broke down from this congestion price range. Broke support at about 40. Broke support at 45, 35. It's now oversold. Um, Probably most similar to maybe this 2022 May 2022 drop, but even more oversold. So would expect counter trend bounce from AEV.
Maybe for our last question for this afternoon, overtime pala tayo. Which one? Maybe we can look at what the other questions are. Uh, let's take both na lang from Johannes Camilono that happened to AR shareholders regarding the planned delisting. Unfortunately, since AR is suspended and it will be delisted soon, there's no real recourse for the shareholders through the BSE, so they will have to take it up with the officers and management of AR. It's quite unfortunate. And then last question from Ken. Do you have any opinion about Apex's operational capacity from the landslide until resumption with full capacity April 6 and cost of resumption with full capacity? Do you have any comments on that?
The resumption full capacity April 6 cost of resumption.
We have to look more closely on that. We have not heard anything more after or apart from the effect from the negative effect of that landslide. Lately, I think the price has been reacting to higher gold prices, which is the higher gold prices naman is a result of greater geopolitical risk and a flight to safety to gold. Um, so maybe we can get back to you on that and post something on the MyTrade map. So if you're not yet a member of MyTrade map, which is our Facebook group where we can also answer your questions, and also you can see more of the technical analysis by IC and our other technical analysts. We can update you on that there. And do you want to quickly comment on Regal before we end?
I think it's not sure he's a subscriber, but I guess just a comment on Pure Gold. I think similar to what I mentioned earlier on some of the stocks, Pure Gold has been, I guess, one of the pressing stocks in terms of both share price and recently Q4 earnings hasn't really been good as well, since I think the impact of the higher rent and even the minimum wage has also affected their profitability. But I guess one of its main drivers continue to be its store network expansion, not only for the Pure Gold brand but also for SNR. So currently, if in what you mentioned, if it since I think not I think generally most of the consumer stocks are feeling this, especially given the high inflationary environment, which tend to happen to these consumer stocks at this point. So I think we have been at the high inflationary environment for almost 2 years now. That's why it's one of the things that has been putting a cap or even depressing most of the consumer stocks. I think currently we are still a hold on pure gold, but if you are looking into entering pure gold, our advice for now is to look elsewhere first, because the outlook for the consumers and especially the retailers, we're not seeing a lot of growth or not many catalysts, at least for 2024, given what was mentioned on inflation and even the higher for longer narrative on interest rates.
And
Chart.
chart back.
That one.
Quickly.
Quickly. Here we go. So pure gold has been below the 20-day moving average for quite a while, as you can see. It actually accelerated downwards recently. The trend is down. At best, you probably want to see this have a counter trend rally where you probably want to lighten or sell into rally. So that's the technical view on pure gold.
And that's it for today's session. We look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks for another episode of Beyond Connections. Please like and subscribe this video and our YouTube channel so you can see you can see when we are going live next. Click the notification bell so you can have a notification on when we're going live. And thank you for joining us this afternoon. And we'll see you again next time.